Made by time. We are all made by time, aren't we? Yeah. The longer the time, the better we are. It's a wonderful thing. Time is something else, though. Time is crazy. It's kind of like an illusionary thing. They created this thing called time, a constant, of course. But I'm just thinking about how it shape shifts. When I'm doing something that I may not be enjoying that much, time really goes slow. And when I'm sitting at the beach, boy, time goes fast. It takes longer to get there than it takes to get home. But it's the same trip. What is that all about? Time. It's supposed to be a constant. The clock's just click, 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 or if it's a nice Rolex. If it's a fake Rolex, you got your Rolex, look down at it. If it's going click, 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 sorry. They're supposed to move like that. Just saying. But we take time, we spend time, we waste time. We use time to gain space. We take time to build something. We take time to tear it down. We take time to expand into new spaces. Space is so much of what our time is about, and we use so much of our time so that we can have more time. We work a lot of time so we can get some vacation time. It's just crazy, Time. This constant that there never seems to be enough. We want to add another hour to the day, another day to the week, another week to the month, because there's just not enough time. But it's just clicking along, click, 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 click. The unforgiving minute, as Rudyard Kipling says, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, if you can fill the unforgiving minute, you will have the whole world. Because he says, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything in it. And which is more, you'll be a man, my son, or a woman, my daughter. That's how important time is. If you can just fill up that it literally says unforgiving minute, because this is going to click on whether you use it or waste it or spend it. It's going to keep on going by. So it's really important that we understand that we are made by time. But this time thing, as the beautiful rabbi Abraham Heschel says, he says, time to us is a sarcasm, a slick, treacherous monster with a jaw like a furnace, incinerating every moment of our lives, burning us up. But if you think about it, if we can be in the flow, if we can be like this season of birth and resurrection, if we can be in that space, we get to live in eternity. We get to feel a sense of immortality if we can use time in its most wonderful and glorious way. Now, this is the time we talk about birth and death. This is that season. And it's spring, another aspect of the season where things are birthing again. I've got a little plant in my backyard that died long ago, and it's a hanging basket thing in a wooden bowl, and for some reason, a wooden box, and for some reason I never took it down. And about 8 years ago, some sparrows started. It's actually a second generation dead plant, because the first plant was in a clay bowl that had this hanger, and it died. And instead of digging it out, I just took another box, another plant, and put it on top of it, and then that one died too. But it didn't die. It was resurrected because these little sparrows started going underneath the wooden one into the clay one and would build a nest. And every spring I'd know they were there because I would hear them tweet, 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 And it was so exciting to watch that. And last year they didn't come. And I thought, oh wow, I guess I better take it down now. They didn't come back this year. Well, you know what happened? And I always kind of fretted that I didn't get to see the babies because they were underneath so well protected. I always wished that maybe they had made the nest up on top. Well, this year, some doves came and they made a nest. And now Johanna and I can look out the back window and watch them building the nest. And it's interesting that here is this nest being built that's supporting birth. but it's being supported by resurrection of dead branches and old dead things that the male dove is coming over and giving to the female who's already, I think, sitting on some eggs because she doesn't move. She's just stuffing in, and it's just wonderful to watch the nature showing what this season is all about. This reminder that there is something that is transcending. There's something within all of us that we get to transcend during this time. And James Hillman talks about it in his book, Force of Character. He says, transcendence of the daily does not occur until the epiphany of the last time. And I thought about that, the last time, the Last Supper. The last time you see somebody, the last time you do something. You can do something every single day, but for some reason, the last time you do it turns it into an event. It makes an event eventful when we have the last. It moves us to a new place. There's an epiphany. There's an inspiration and a realization that comes when we see the last of something. It's beyond the everyday. It leaves an impression on us. So it's interesting that during this time and this day and this season, we talk about the Last Supper and Jesus' walk for those days, and then his last walk carrying that cross, and then going up on that cross, and then this time of resurrection that comes at the other side of it. And Dr. Holmes talks about this same kind of lift in this movement. He says there is a soul within us that's immortal, that transcends this thing called time. But it happens when we begin to master time. When we don't worry about whether we're wasting it, spinning it, or whatever. We just master it. We live in the present moment. It's so hard to do, though, sometimes. The Bible talks about it a lot. The Bible is a book about time, if you look at it really carefully. It's about timelessness and eternality. It's not revolved around space. It's involved around the importance of how we spend our moments and how we spend our time. And it also reminds us, particularly at this time of year, that we have more of it to give, that every time we move through an experience, that's just an end that leads to a new beginning. And we're constantly in this cycle of birth and death and resurrection. But blocking us so often are the crosses that we bear. And we all bear them. Lord knows we're all bearing something. The worry, the anxiety, the fears, the living in the past, wondering if that's going to become the next thing in our future that blocks us from this journey. But it's time for us, and this is a reminder for us, to stop wallowing in that tomb of anxiety and worry and fear. Let go of the uncertainty. Don't let your hope die. You see, because there's always more of it. Click, 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 click. It's not unforgiving. It's unyielding. It keeps coming. It's infinitely giving, this thing called time. And at this time of year, when the sun the other morning woke up and was looking out the window, and the light off of the plants, it was just sparkling. The greens, the various shades, and the shadows. It was delightful. I was like, I don't want to wake up. Shut up, alarm. I'm laying here longer. It just to be with you, to be with the light. And it's so interesting that the light draws us so that we want to see the sunrise and the sunset so often, because there's something that calls us in the light. And see, it's there. It's this voice in the light, this voice that speaks to us, telling us that we can arise and walk forth free and whole. We can walk out of our tomb of anxiety. We can walk out of our tomb of worry. We can walk out of our tomb of dead hope and turn back toward the light and live in inspiration and live in upliftment and live in unfoldment and live in the ever-givingness of spirit. And that's what this is to remind us, that we're all like that little sprouting plant that's coming up out of the season. We're all like all those little flowers in our yards that are beginning to open each and every day. We get to open up anew into a new blossom and a new livingness. But it requires us to let go of what was happening before, to quit living so much in the past, to not live in the fear, the lack, the unhappiness, in the dis-ease of everyday life. And oh my goodness, the news will certainly throw you into that area. But those are all opportunities for us to birth a new experience. And we must hold on to that no matter what, and not lose the fact that there is that light. So when you are called to the light, when you see the sunset and you look over at your partner and you say, look at that, know that that spirit calling you to a greater experience of life. You see, this is why we love it so much. That's why we wear bright colors. You like this? My brother had this made for me for one of my ordination gifts. And because I know that, we're kind of casual here, the universe was totally supporting me because I got all dressed up today, and I left my dressy shoes at home, so I got my clogs on. So it's like all total see me. What?
Socks. Nice socks.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. When I was working in the newsroom, I think I've talked about this before in a different context, but I was thinking about it this week, how, that idea of walking out of our tomb of fear and worry, anxiety and doubt and standing into the light. And it dawned on me as I was rehashing some of my past, because when you start talking about letting go of your past, what happens? Start thinking about it. And I was thinking about when I worked in the newsroom, the weather office was in the studio, not in the newsroom itself. And people would come to my office, and they would come and they would gripe. I thought it was griping. They would share. I didn't know it was sharing. I didn't know I was ministering. They would come into my office, and they would talk to me about their problems and their challenges and their worries and their concerns. And I would just listen. I was mostly just kind of drawing my maps and listening and going, oh, yeah, oh, yeah. But then this would hit me. The studio's dark most of the time, but just before, about a half hour, 40 minutes before the broadcast, they light it up. And when the lights would come on, it would light up my inner office, and the people would go, oh, it's almost news time, I better get going. And they would leave, and it dawned on me, oh my God, they came in, and they were all down in the dumps, and they walk into this dark tomb, and they share all their stuff, and then the light would come on, and they'd walk out. And I was like, wow, I've been doing birth, death, resurrection for a really long time. I've been a walking Easter story, And we're called to know that the reminders we get in nature of dusk and dawn, of winter and spring, we're called to know what Jesus was to remind us through his experience. Yes, forgiveness of sins in a more fundamental Christian perspective. But I think what he was called to know is trust. He was calling us to know what he said so frequently, the Father and I are one. The Father within me does the work. I and the Father will do greater things. This is the reminder of this season, that we will do greater things as we arise into our greatness. I was thinking about I ran across a YouTube. God, I love YouTube. It's so perfect for my attention span. I don't really have it for a whole TV show anymore. I don't know. 20 minutes is way too much. 6-minute video, yay! So I saw this one on the water beetle. Are you familiar with the water beetle? It's talk about an Easter story. Here's this water beetle kind of flipping around in the water, blah, 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 blah. And then it gets this idea that it needs to climb out of the water. So it climbs out of the water onto a branch, and it takes the little claws and it goes and it hooks into that branch. Right? It just digs in really deep. And then it begins to breathe. And as it breathes, it dries out because it's living in the water. But now it's hooked. It's dried out. And as it dries out and breathes, its back splits open and a dragonfly comes out. Whoa! You can do it yourself. Just Google water beetle YouTube and you'll see it. It's like amazing. And then it breathes some more and all of a sudden its wings come out and it just takes off. That's us. As we let go of our old stuff, as we go into meditation, as we go into the gap, as we go for witnessing the experience of the divine within us, and we just breathe into it, inspiration arises, and we stand up, and like the weather office, we walk out into the bright light, and we fly like the dragonfly into our new experience. That's what this time of year is to tell us and to remind us that we have that ability, we have that potential within us. But we forget because we're forgetful creatures. Look, I forgot my shoes. We forget. But when we remember, we do as Dr. Holmes says. We no longer carry the burdens of yesterday into our tomorrows, we find a day, every day, a day of resurrection and of rejoicing as we remember that we have this quality, we have this ability, we have this call, we have this urge. This is what we're here to do. We're here to live the experience that God cannot live, because God is like, what? Nothing. Really. It's an idea. It's a presence. It's a feeling. It's an experience that can't be had without us. We have the experience that God wants to have. That's why we and God are one. So we're called to not wallow in our tomb. We're called to not lay out on a marble slab, although they're pretty cool in the middle of summer when it's really hot. But we're called to jump out into our greatness. We're called to live in the brightness of our tomorrows, rejoicing, living it fully, experiencing resurrection. There was this girl named Melissa, and she'd gone off to college. It was her first year. I could relate to Melissa. It was not a good year. She didn't have a lot of friends. She was a long way from home. She was very different than the other people. She didn't connect, and she let that not connecting kind of put her in a box. And some of you guys who are around know what I'm talking about. She was in the less than box, the I'm invisible box. And so she just separated herself from everybody. And the year was pretty darn miserable. And she grew up on the East Coast, right near the ocean. She was used to waking up and looking at the ocean. So on her way home from this school in the Midwest, right in the middle of the Plain States, she was so excited to get home so she could see the ocean again. She was so miserable. I need the ocean. Some of you may recognize that. I know. For me, Johanna, when we need it to get that, the ocean is what calls us. So she held that call. I think that's why I related to Melissa's story. So she flies home. She gets off the plane. Her grandmother's waiting for her to take her home. She's so excited because her and her grandma get along really, really well. But for some reason, she was pretty depressed. And she didn't say anything all the way home. All she thought about was getting to the ocean. And she took off in grandma's car right after dinner down to the beach just after sunset. So it was a little dark. And she sat there. And she replayed the year. And she saw how she had separated herself from others and how she saw herself as different and how she actually created some of the situations that she was experiencing. And she said, maybe something new can happen, something. And she sort of dozed off. And when she opened her eyes, she didn't even realize she had slept most of the night and the sun was starting to rise. And as she saw the sun rising, this light called her to realize that she was at choice as to how things could be for her. She was at choice to how school would be. And she let go. She was able to make sense of all the things that happened in the past year. And she was able to let that go and stand up in that bright new sunny day and get back in the car. And she was like, yay! And she was charged and ready to head back with enthusiasm and vigor back to school. We all have the Melissa opportunity within us. We all have the opportunity to, I'm not saying ignore your past. I think your past is really important. But make some of the past your last. Make it an eventful situation, something memorable that leaves an impression. Perhaps an impression that says, I'm not going to do that again. And then grow from it. Look toward the light and rise up into the greatness of who you are. Let those situations resurrect you. Live one of the central tenets of the science of mind. There's one life. That life is God. That life is my life now. Say it with me. There is one life. That life is God. That life is my life now. There's power in that phrase. It's been said since 1918, 17, I think, when Ernest Holmes wrote that down. So it's been said that long and maybe even longer ago than that. But since Ernest put it in those words, that's how long it's been said. When you say that, there's power in it. Use that affirmation on a regular basis. It will tie you into your resurrection moment. And then you get to live life like Melissa, who left the beach, like the people who left my office back in the newsroom days, like the dragon that lifts up out of the dragonfly that lifts up out of the water beetle. And you can have this experience that Dr. Holmes talks about, where he says, The one who finds life interesting and enters into it with zest every day, no matter what, he says, no matter what. If you can zest every day, it keeps himself alive and awake and aware so long as he is in this world and even beyond. And all these experiences that you have are made by time. And so it is. All right. Our affirmation. Here we go. I feel the call of something greater within that knows that as I answer in time, I receive its gift. Yes, indeed. It is now time for us to pray. We'll put it here for today. They should just not give me toys. All right. So this is our time to go within, to recognize the value of prayer, the power of prayer, and the self-givingness of spirit. I know that out there right now, there is someone that is working through something, because we're all working through something at some point, or we know someone who's working through something. So I want to speak the word for each and every person here, and I allow you to share in this journey. So if you have something that is on your heart or someone you know that needs prayer, speak that word, speak that person out right now, like Michelle and Dean and their daughter Elise for the loss of their dear friend Austin. Anyone else? Let's hear it. Feeling the collective love of this room and knowing that collective love represents the divine spirit unfolding in this moment of time and space. We have made the time for a connection with you, our dear divine loved one, friend, partner, source, spirit, Father, Mother, God. We have so many ways of connecting with you, so many names that we call you, but in the end, when we call to you, we call to ourselves. So in this moment of unified calling, we recognize that there is power in this relationship. There is power in this understanding. There is power in this connecting. And we use that power to infect the world with your love and your grace, your peace and your glory. See, we're standing in the victory of love in this moment. We are not victims of anything. We are living in the zest and the enthusiasm of life. And as we know that for each and every person here, we know it for all those that are in our hearts and our minds. We know that there is nothing standing in the way of their stepping into their new moment of joy and happiness. We all arise into a bright, sunny time of life through an understanding that it is done unto us as we believe. And today, this moment, we affirm that we believe in the good. As Emma Curtis Hopkins says, if there's good enough, it's good enough for me and I'll have it. So I accept it. Right now, we all reach out with your hand. Take it. Thank you. That's mine. With a heart that is grateful for the opportunity to receive. And a heart that is deeply in the declaration of the joy of giving. I accept this prayer for each and every person here and release it now into the law. And so it is.